let's go straight into it. Obviously, Earl Christopher, Mrs. Earl Christopher, will become Commissioner of Police. Give us your take. Would you support? Are you supporting the first female Commissioner of Police?
Well, definitely. Just by the saying, the first female Commissioner of Police, that is not the priority. The priority is the fact is whoever is the person that is going to be appointed, I will ask every law-abiding citizen to give her that support. That is required. It is unfortunate that the police service has become so politicized. Unfortunately, many persons will automatically demonize the incoming Commissioner of Police without actually even giving her a chance. That is not what should be done at this time. Regardless of the circumstances that caused her to become the Commissioner of Police, that is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is that she would become the next Commissioner of Police. We don't know how long it would be, but it is for 4 months until she retires, or a year extension. But during that period, what is required is for us, as much as possible, regardless of your political affiliation, if you really and truly are a law-abiding citizen and you really and truly see yourself as a patriot of Trinidad and Tobago, you should give her that support, and that is what is required. What caused it to take place is something totally different. My view on this whole matter is that we have totally become a banana republic as it comes to the selection process of a Commissioner of Police. We have caused that. In 2006, I think it was Basdio Pandey and Patrick Manning, they made a decision that has caused this problem because they have made the laws in such a way that has become totally politicized. If suppose there's a Prime Minister who is being thoroughly investigated by a Commissioner of Police, he can now easily have that person removed because he is the person who is the influential factor to appoint a president who will appoint the Police Service Commission. So the Police Service Commission could comprise 5 individuals with a Balize card or USC card in their back pocket, and they were going to work based on the directives of the president who appointed them and who was appointed by the Prime Minister. It is ridiculous. It cannot continue. It is very unfortunate, and it is hoped that this can change in the very near future. I mean, going back to even this same process, you look in 2018 when you actually had an external agency being the factor to do the assessment, and that was the correct thing to do because you made sure there was a degree of impartiality. So in 2018, KPMG was appointed, and there was a UK specialist who was instrumental in selecting commissioners around the world, dozens of around the world. And during that process, I acquired the highest number of points, 82%. Earl Christopher came 12th, and she acquired 52%. And so it shows the situation of when it is you have qualified people doing a process in an independent manner to persons who may have their own agenda to operate in a different manner. And then you go back to 2021, when I acquired 94%, and Earl Christopher got 74%. And now this new Police Service Commission, conveniently, when they hand the merit list to the president, automatically Paula May Weeks decides to do her job this time around, and whereas before she did not. So it shows the politicizing of this whole situation. It is very unfortunate, and it does not augur well. It does not help the person who is appointed because it automatically can cause persons to perceive that he or she has been selected based on political preference rather than competence. And that I find is very unfortunate for her as she starts her first day in office come Saturday.
All right, let's get into the crux of the matter, and that has to do with the number of murders, Mr. Griffith. 600 plus murders for 2022. 2023 has 2 months in the year already, and we are over 60 murders. That's the main challenge, to bring down the murder rate. During your tenure, obviously, we did not have these figures. How do going into this job as a female, 1, and 2, how does she command charges to treat with this murder scourge, in your view?
Okay, sure. Going back again to the first point. Let us try to avoid this about going into it as a female. I will see no difference in whether she's a female or whether it is a male. So the perception of it being a female, and then sometimes people say, well, let's give a female a chance. No, you give the person who has been appointed. So we need to take away the gender aspect of it. She has a very difficult job to do. I think it's arguably the most difficult position in Trinidad and Tobago. And what she will need to do is to bring that type of leadership that is required to lift the moral and motivation of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. That is what is required. If that is not done, the moral and motivation of the officers will not be shown. They will not come out. They will not give their best because you do not put systems to ensure deterrent to prevent productive opportunity for corruption. The criminal elements in the police service who were very instrumental in my removal would come back out. And finally, if she does not instill that confidence, the public themselves will not have that public trust and confidence that is required. So what caused the massive transformation under my watch as Commissioner of Police? It had to do with that. It had to do with me pushing heavily to lift the moral and motivation of police officers, which is why you started seeing police officers going above and beyond during the COVID period. Not one was absent, not one abandoned their job. And that is what is required now. We're not seeing it anymore after just a year because of lack of leadership during that last 15 months. As it pertains to the public trust and confidence in the police service was 14% in 2018. When I realized that, I realized what the big problem was. So I pushed heavily to ensure that we can build back public trust and confidence. On my departure, it moved to 55%, the highest increase in anywhere in the public service. And that showed that because the public started to believe in the police service, which was a critical element and tool to defeat the criminals. That must be reignited. So she needs to find a way now to try to build back public trust and confidence in the public to want to support and trust the police service. And finally, using the tools, the technology, the capability to try to peg back criminal elements. There were 130 policies that I put in place, and Mr. Jacob shut down, abandoned, dismantled, or fired every single one. And because of that, the criminals took advantage of that opportunity. So from the technology, the units, the policies, the equipment, all of the things that we did to put an end to kidnapping in Trinidad and Tobago, which never happened before, to reduce the murder rate by over 33%, to ensure the lowest number of murders in 17 years. My last full year was 342. The Jacob's last full year was 600. Yet this Police Service Commission had the audacity to put this man as the runner-up behind Ula Christopher. So if Ula Christopher is rejected, he is going to be the next person. This is a person that I defeated by 17% in 2018. So it shows all of these different things are not, we haven't kicked off to a good head start because the public will be skeptical to understand how did this happen. And that is what, however, she must put focus not on how she got there, but put focus in finding the avenues, the systems, the policies to ensure that the same thing that we did from 2018 to 2021 can be reignited to ensure that we can go in the right direction.
Okay, Mr. Griffith, so you spoke about morale, you spoke about, of course, your track record, you spoke about a lot of things. But coming back to a point that you made about if she's not selected or not accepted, it would fall onto Mr. Jacob. But what in particular would that look like? If she's not accepted after the debate, is it that it's automatic or is there a process? And secondly, if she's given a short contract, would that same thing apply with regards to Mr. Jacob being the next Commissioner of Police?
No, there's a merit list. So how the merit list runs, you'll have the persons placed in first, second, third. And you now send the first place name to Parliament. If that person is rejected, they will then go back to the President and she will now have the person who placed second in the merit list. What the Police Service Commission and the President have done in a very smart manner is, if you recall the last time when there was the merit list in 2021, the country knew I came first with 94%. They knew that Mr. Norton, who was a very senior officer and a very professional officer as well, he placed second with 77%, and Ula Christopher came third with 74%. It was known. In this situation, they have, in a clandestine manner, they have hidden this because of embarrassment to show the incompetence of this Police Service Commission, that a man who has totally dismantled everything that was done to reduce crime, a man who the country really had very little respect and trust and confidence for as a Commissioner of Police, a man who has the record of over 600 murders as the Commissioner of Police, whilst inheriting the highest reduction in crime. And he took the battle from the highest reduction to then have the highest increase. This is who they decided to place as second. It shows that this Police Service Commission, including the Maxine Attongs and all of them, it is their embarrassment to this country for what they have done. By you trying to have the audacity to put this man as second, it shows that they really don't, they are either incompetent or they had an agenda. Whichever, it is a disgrace to Trinidad and Tobago. This Police Service Commission should be removed immediately. But that won't happen until the president is changed. So going back to, if Ula Christopher is rejected, they will then go to the second place person, who will be Mr. Jacob. If she is appointed, which I think she would, because just by Mr. Jacob being removed from office in an unceremonious manner and are being chased like a dog, that means that this government does not want Jacob. They have used him as the fall guy to say, well, look, there were 600 murders. The country really do not like him. Public trust and confidence in the police have gone from 55% back to probably less than 10%. So because of that, they've decided to let's start clean, because we did our hatchet job to remove the person that 89% of the country wanted to return as commissioner of police. So let us try to find a new person. Let us use the female aspect. So it's a very political angle of a marketing tool. So Jacob, by them removing Jacob, it means obviously that Ulla Christopher is the political choice. Because as I said, the politician appointed a president who handpicked these 5 individuals in the Police Service Commission. So they knew exactly what they did, which is why it is impossible that someone could get 52% to someone getting 82%. Someone getting 74% to someone getting 94% just a year ago could now come and top it. So this was a totally politically controlled aspect. And because of that, it shows that Ulla Christopher is the political choice even before it goes to Parliament. So that is a game plan. So that is how it would be. And now because she is going to retire in a few months, she can have the extension for a year and then through the president.
Yes,
so she was going to remain as the commissioner of police for at least a year and 4 months minimum.
Okay, and she turns 60 in May, indeed, and that would mean that the cabinet would have to approve that her to remain in service beyond that, and we would get into that. But you recently said that the constitution is flawed and easily manipulated, and of course, once she's accepted, there's very little she can do to treat with the constitution. But what should be high on her priority with regards to the fight against crime and pursuing her role as the commissioner of police once accepted?
Well, I just said that it is straightforward. The first thing she should do is have the maturity not to be political, make sure that she's not manipulated or controlled by politicians. And that was my problem. I listened to what you all just said just a few minutes ago. And it really cannot be such incompetence by politicians to have virtually handed back over this country to criminal elements. We cracked it. The country saw it. Up until August 2020, in August 2018, crime was the #1 concern in the country. We brought it back to #4, sent it down to #4 behind health, education, and the economy. You saw every single violent crime being reduced by over 30%. We speak about the public trust and confidence in the police going from 40 to 55%. Why would you as a government decide to now do everything to shut down and dismantle everything because of one individual? So what it is hoped, and by that happening, we moved from 342 murders in my last year, as I said, which was the lowest number of murders in 17 years, to 600 murders immediately on my departure. So the criminals saw the opportunity and they went for it. So that is going to be her biggest issue. She needs to have the maturity not to be controlled by politicians, to do what is correct. And when she does that, it will build public trust and confidence. It will cause morale to the police service to be lifted, to know that their leader is not being manipulated or politically controlled. These are critical elements. Does she have the capability and the maturity to stand firm and do what is right? I did, and I paid the price for it. But I remember I put my hand on a Bible, and that oath was for my God, my country, and my people, not any politician who will try to manipulate me by giving me 45 million TT and tell me, use this money to hire lawyers to arrest all the political opponents of the PNM. That is not the type of commissioner of police you want. You want a commissioner of police to say, listen, this AV drilling investigation, I have it now. It has made for disturbing reading, in the lovely words of Keith Rowley himself. And I am asking for a simple 100,000 TT to have an engineer. And when I keep asking for it, it meant that I was stepping on toes. And now all of a sudden, that investigation has also been sidelined conveniently. She must be strong enough to ensure that the police service cannot be a political tool of politicians. Because if you get that, that is what is known as democratic dictatorship. And I fought hard to prevent that from happening. She now must continue. Even if she wants to walk badly, she's going to fall into the same abyss of others before me or after me who may have done same because they need a job badly. I didn't need a job badly, but I will stand firm and do what is right for my country and not be manipulated or try to be influenced by politicians to arrest citizens in their homes, which will be a breach of their constitutional rights. That is the type of leadership we need. That is the type of commissioner of police we need. So it is hoped that she will stand firm and do what is right for Trinidad and Tobago and not to help politicians.
All right, let's bring the holistic approach to fighting crime, and you mentioned it before, that she must be supported or should be supported by her charges. However, you mentioned earlier too, and you didn't say it, I'm coining it this way, the rogue element in the police service. And that you said earlier that led to your demise. How does that, what should be the approach going forward? Because you were adamant that we must get rid of the rogue element to have this, the service function in the way it should in terms of treating with crime. If there are criminal in the police service, then that goes against the grade of what the intent and the ambition of any commissioner going forward. Well, your approach was to investigate and get rid of the individuals who will harm the service. This new commissioner will have that same challenge. What would you advise in that regard?
Well, definitely, you have to stand up. I remember David West, the head of the PCA, when he mentioned the biggest gang in Tobago is the police service, and he was attacked with full force. But I can tell you there is definitely a massive rogue element within the police service. When I say massive in comparison to the scheme of things, the vast majority of police officers are hardworking, dedicated officers. But if it is you just say even 5%, you're speaking about for every 20 police officers in a station, one is on the take. And that is not going to affect investigations. It is going to affect operations. He's going to be tipping off persons. So what I inherited and I saw, and it was factual, we had, such as for firearms, we had on most stations, police officers holding back over 50,000 applications by blackmailing and bribing persons. I put an end to it by putting the FUL card with a chip on the compliance unit. As soon as I left, they removed that to go right back to cause the corruption at the stations, which is what some of these officers wanted because it was a massive rogue industry. Then it is, as it pertains to overtime, $240 million in overtime corruption. We're speaking about hundreds of officers claiming they were working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 30 days a month, making $70,000, $80,000 a month where they're supposed to be making 10 odd, and it's being signed by senior officers. That is the type of fight down I had to get, and I completed it. I was able to reduce that overtime corruption by $240 million per annum, and use those funds now from a business perspective for all the things that the police service really needed without asking the government for an extra cent. And that is what she's going to have to fight with. But these elements, they have the ears of politicians. So I listened to what you just said recently, just a few minutes ago, and it is a very powerful statement. People benefit from crime. What I started doing was affecting a multi-billion-dollar industry inside and outside of the police service. And we have a prime minister and a government that is so clueless, so naive, they were easily manipulated to believe nonsense and lies, because what I did is I was stepping on toes and affecting big business inside and outside the police service. Does Earl Christopher have the strength to go after these same elements? Because what I started doing was things like polygraph testing on the coastline. Are you involved in aiding and abetting criminal elements to bring in illegal weapons, drugs, and human trafficking? We actually had about 20% of officers refusing to answer a simple question like that in a polygraph test. We had officers refusing to be drug tested. When we started doing when I started forming undercover unit, we had police officers covering and controlling drug blocks for criminal elements. So what I did in many of these occasions, we transfer them, move them, or I could have seen as the highest number of officers who were suspended, arrested, or charged under my watch. We had a situation where officers were not coming to court. It was a 90% reduction in court absenteeism, which played a major part to peg back criminals, because the criminals realized I could be held for weapons, for rape, for robbery. I know the officer is not going to turn up for court, and I will leave. All of these things you had to fight hard to rebrand the police service and reignite that type of pride and passion, whilst making sure you target the criminal elements. Instead, the criminal elements had easy access to press a button, have access to politicians, whisper in their ears, and fool them. She now needs to have the same strength to do exactly what was done. And if that happens, the rogue elements will be minimized and not be able to manipulate the process. And with that, you will see success in crime reduction.
But Mr. Griffith, you too was accused of corruption by the number of firearms you were issuing or issued.
I was never accused of corruption. That's a lie.
Okay, well, there was concerns about the number of firearms.
No, but I really take offense that you as a reporter could lie and say that I was accused of corruption. Please apologize. You're totally out of place to lie in public.
going smoothly, and we're going to continue to go smooth, because if you ask me, I would, if I had any clout in this country, I'd return you as Commissioner of Police. However,
Yeah, but they don't say I was accused of corruption.
However, there was concern in the public domain about the number of firearms you were issuing. You issued over 500 firearms. Justify it for us so that we'll be clear that there was no question.
I will really take offense to, please don't mislead. There was never public concern. The only concern was Fitzgerald Hines and Keith Rowley who had a concern. If you look to the statements made by the vast majority of the public, you can't have one or two politicians misleading the country and lying to say that there were concerns. You can't have two politicians lying to try to say that I was accused of something. I was never accused, because Stanley John did a report. The report had, it is alleged, it is perceived, and we have heard, which are all lines that are used by politicians in reports because they know the reports have no fact. So what it is you see is that you say the same lie over and over. After 2 years, not one police officer, not one has been arrested for bribery, blackmail, or corruption. Not one, as it pertains to firearms, because it was all a lie. They spent 2 years, but the PNM knows how to do this well. It was email gate reloaded. You take a document, you fake it, and you say, listen, this is what we have been told. And we have people who are so gullible to believe it. So let me go back to the facts. Over 50,000 people applied for firearms, over 50,000. And these persons were being ignored, and because they were being held, their applications were being held against their will, well, without them getting anywhere unless they were paid bribes. I now looked at the system and realized that what was being done, I removed it from the stations to prevent the officers from blackmailing the citizens. Look at the point of what I said. Not one person has ever been charged, held for bribery or corruption in blackmailing persons for firearms under my watch. That was the difference. But we were hearing this for decades. So they rushed to do an audit, and the audit didn't have the common courtesy to ask me, because I would have showed them the information. So the plan was to take this audit and take it to Parliament, because the one place you can lie and not be sued is in Parliament. And that is what it was. And then in the firearms that I issued, half of them were to police officers, soldiers, sailors, customs officers, prison officers who needed their firearms when they leave work, because we have an outdated system that when you finish work of the day, you have to keep it at the station, and then you go home and your life is at risk, and you have seen the number of prison officers being killed. So half of that were for those persons. Of all the firearms that I issued, not one was ever lost, not one was ever stolen, not one was used to commit a crime, not one was used to commit a murder. In fact, dozens upon dozens of persons' lives were saved because of what I did. So imagine we are in such a state in this country, people are upset that I was able to provide legal firearms to be given to law-abiding citizens to prevent them from being killed by criminal elements. 100% of all murders committed under my watch by firearms were by illegal firearms. But this incompetent, stupid government has the audacity to be concerned about legal firearms. Whilst back at the ranch, between the Prime Minister, the Minister of National Security, and the previous Commissioner of Police, over 40 firearms, they came to me like little spoiled children asking for firearms to be approved for their friends. So it shows the hypocrisy. It's okay for you to be a big boy. You're asking for firearms for your big boy friends. But when the law-abiding citizen wants firearms to defend themselves, when you have the humble farmer who needs to protect himself from perennial larceny, when you have the small businessman who has lots of cash at the end of the day and he cannot get police support, you're saying that these persons should not have firearms. I did what was required, and that is why 89% of the country wanted me to return as Commissioner of Police. The 11% were the criminal elements. They had their own agenda.
Mr. Griffith, we have to leave, but did you apply to be the Commissioner of Police this time around, or are you strictly focused on your political party?
All right, quickly. So I reapplied specifically to show the flaw in the Constitution, to show that even though I applied, it was not going to happen. You can't have somebody who will come first with 82%. Somebody else get 52%, and she will now top him. You can't have somebody who will come first in 2021 with 94%. Another person gets 74%, and then within a year, she decides to top him. I did it to show that there's no such thing as an independent body whilst this government remains in office. They will manipulate the process, and this independent body has been now shown that they are totally compromised. So the reason I reapplied was to show, more importantly, that one man and one man alone decides to say, look, regardless of this person was the person who was instrumental in the highest reduction in crime in Trinidad's history, regardless of the fact that he lifted public confidence in the police from 14 to 55%, regardless of the fact that 89% of the country wants him, regardless of the fact that this is the highest spike in crime since he has left. I do not care. Let the blood flow in this country. I want to make sure that he is not there. I don't care about the stats. I don't care about the crime. I don't care about the public ones. It is about me. It goes right back to when a man said, when it is a man, you see hate, you see malice, you see a man totally out of control if he cannot have his way. And I asked Trinidad and Tobago, now it's time to understand that this man obviously did not put the priority of you on the priority as it pertains to your safety and security. It is time to have Keith Rowley removed democratically as Prime Minister of this country.
All right, we want to thank you for being with us this morning. All the best to you, Mr. Griffith, and have a good day. All right, thank you.